Welcome to Workforce Insights, where we explore the trends, challenges, and opportunities that are shaping today's workplace. I'm your host, Wendy Beltzner with Lehigh Carbon Community College's Center for Workforce Development, and this is our second episode. In every conversation, we sit down with leaders who are on the front lines of workforce development to share their perspectives and experiences. And today I'm excited to be joined by George Thorne, Senior HR Business Partner at Lineage in Allentown. George brings a wealth of insight into how his organization is developing leaders and supporting teams in a rapidly changing environment. George, to kick things off, it would be great if you could share a bit about your background, the company that you're with now, and what your role looks like there.
Hi, good afternoon, Wendy, and thank you for having me on. So my background is comprised of bringing the Marine Corps from 2008 to 2012, where I was a legal service specialist or paralegal at 4421. I left at the rank of corporal. From there, I started my HR journey with the company prior to Lineage, and I joined Lineage in 2022 as an HR generalist. And from there, I was promoted to an HR business partner, and I'm currently a senior HR business partner.
Oh, that's fantastic. Can you tell us a little bit about the company for those of the folks who might be watching and they're not quite sure what Lineage is?
Lineage is comprised of cold storage warehouses.
All right. And how many employees do you have?
We currently have a little over 300 employees at my Allentown, Rupesville location.
All right. Wow, that's quite a team. Okay. Well, I'm curious, George, in your role in human resources, I'm sure you've seen a lot over the last few years. What do you think about leadership challenges that you've seen surface, especially over again, the last few years? How have they affected your workforce?
So we've been leading through rapid change and workforce shortages, making sure we get the best qualified candidates for the role, and also hiring for culture. That's really important for us to progress and actually ensure that everyone who joins our organization thrives in the organization. Um, we also want to make sure we have great communication. We're adaptable and we thrive on engagement, right? Everyone wants to be recognized and acknowledged for the hard work and dedication that they have. And we want leaders who provide clarity, empathy, and stabilize their teams because that's a huge impact, right? Folks will remember how their leaders made them feel.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Um, and I always talk about this in training. I always say, no one should have to fight for their leader or their supervisor or manager, or fill in the title, to understand who they are and what they need, right? That's just a must. So yeah, the expectations of leaders have certainly changed. So when
Absolutely.
you look at leaders across the board, and you take a look at those who tend to rise to the occasion versus those who may struggle a bit, what differences do you notice most?
So the differences that I notice between a struggling leader and a successful leader really boils down to this. So successful leaders work on building trust with their teams. And that's just not, if you think of an operations manager who has a supervisor who has a lead, that's the operation manager's job to build a relationship with everyone from top down. And that's how it should go everywhere from every role from president of the organization to vice president to a general manager, so on and so forth. You have to build those relationships with your teams to be successful. You have to communicate clearly and you have to be concise. I need to know what the ask is,
Mm,
and the team members need to understand what they're being asked to deliver. So
right.
communication is really good, and you balance accountability with empathy. One of the most important things to do, or that we have to do, is remember that at the end of the day, we're all people, and what we feel and how we feel matters. So that's what I see in successful leaders and struggling leaders. They overfocus on tasks and metrics.
Mhm.
You can be task oriented, but you lose sight of the individual performing said task. We have to be understanding, and struggling leaders really, really don't have that, and they avoid tough conversations and they rely too much on their authority to get things done. When you avoid tough conversations, you begin to lose accountability,
Mhm.
and you lose the ability to develop because some of these conversations that you have that seem really tough are really going to help the individual get to the next phase in their life or their career.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. And there's a difference between authority and influence. And it sounds like what you're describing, those who make it look like it's easy have that natural ability to build influence with their teams versus those who struggle using the authority. Yeah, right on. Wow.
There's definitely a charisma. You have to have charisma.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, so there's these critical people skills, and then there are the technical compliance training, pieces of information. How do you think organizations can strike a balance between developing both of those skill sets in their leaders?
I believe we should drop the mindset that these two ideas are in competition. They should really be integrated. You should teach both processes and people skills together. Um, Example, policy versus feedback delivery, right? Because you're speaking to people. Everything we do is so people driven and process driven. So you have to integrate those. And then you want to reinforce that effective leadership requires both. And any organization that does these things will have a positive outcome.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I'm hearing you say is they're both important. One is not more important than the other, right? They're both critical.
Extremely.
So how do we do this then? I know being in training for a number of years, how do we keep the dust off the binders? And how do we make training become alive for them, especially once they're back into their world of work? What role do you see the organization playing in helping leaders actually put into practice what they've learned?
I think the role of leaders is extremely important. It has to be ongoing. It has to be sustained. I can give you an example now. Lineage has the Edge program, which teaches our supervisors everything they need to know to be successful in their roles. And then I was recently a part of a team that developed a Nexus program for operations managers to give them all the tools they need to know. Every step of the way, this organization will and has invested in its people, whether it's external trainings with vendors or whether it's having the on-site courses that we have from L-Tri-C. It just gives our peoples the tools that they need in their toolbox to be successful. So the organization should provide job aids. There should be constant reminders. There should be standard work instruction. There should be standard operating procedures. We also house a huge repository of of those same documents. And it may seem like a hassle. It's not the favorite to everyone, but those things are available to you should you need them. We should also reinforce through coaching, mentoring, and development your individual development plans. Um, they should be tailor made to that individual, and you should understand where your people want to go and
Mm,
how they want to be developed. Sometimes you can ask someone, how do you learn?
right.
That's a really important question. How do you learn? And then you want to build accountability with feedback and metrics and recognition because that boosts morale. If people know how well they're doing or how well they're not doing or what opportunities they have, that allows you to work with them to correct them or give them, again, the tools they need to be better. And then you want to ensure the learning is ongoing. You
Mm.
should always have callbacks to the focal points or the core values, whatever the training was about, so that you can keep it consistent and ongoing.
No, you are absolutely on target there. And I love to hear your company's commitment to ensuring that training doesn't just remain in a binder, that it becomes real. And I love how you hold folks accountable. We love to work with organizations who are about that because, in a classroom, you can only do so much, but when they're back in their real world and you're providing them with all of those opportunities to actually put to use what they've learned, it takes it to a different level and holding them accountable for that learning. That's the real return on investment, right? That's what you want to see is that behavior change. So kudos, that's really great. Well, looking ahead, I'd love to hear your perspective on the future. Everyone in today's world is just, everything is in flux. And as you talked about before, being agile and able to change. But what skills or qualities do you think would define the most effective leader as we look ahead, like over the next maybe 5 to 10 years? What do you feel is most necessary?
I think skills and qualities the most effective leaders will need to develop or embody over the next 5 to 10 years will be leaders who will have to thrive in human-centered leadership and digital fluency. And certain areas to pinpoint would be adaptability and resilience in the face of disruption. There's always going to be, whether they're disruptive technologies or just disruptions to the workforce. So it's going to be ever changing. So you have to be able to pivot at a moment's notice. Emotional intelligence is huge. That's what fosters psychological safety, and that's how you build trust within your teams. And that's at every level, from your CEO to your president to your vice president, as it trickles down. It's your job to foster that psychologically safe environment. Inclusive leadership to embrace diverse teams and truly keep or maintain that diverse input and those diverse perspectives, because that's how you move forward.
Right.
There won't always be homogeny. Um, digital and data literacy. When I joined, before I joined Lineage, I don't think I had as much exposure to tools such as Microsoft Excel. But in this ever-changing business landscape, that is one of the most important tools I see leveraged throughout everything we do. Strategic agility that helps us balance long-term vision with our ability to pivot quickly, and of course, continuous improvement, continuous learning, and maintaining the curiosity. What's next? What can we do better? How can I help you? Things like that. We should always be learning, and not just as individuals, but as a company as a whole.
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. It's exciting to think about how leadership is evolving, and it really reinforces the idea that development isn't a one-time event. Leaders who keep learning and growing, those are the ones who will be ready for whatever comes next. Well, George, I truly appreciate you joining me today and sharing your perspectives on leadership and workforce development. I know the insights from your own experiences have been incredibly valuable for me and our audience as well. And for those of you who are watching, I hope today's discussion sparks some new ideas about how we can better support and prepare our leaders for the future. If you're tasked with growing leaders in your organization and finding the right programs has been a challenge, reach out and let us know. Our priority here at the Center for Workforce Development is to support the organizations in our community by listening to what matters most to them and shaping training solutions that make a real difference. You can find more information about our current programs on our website at lccc.edu. This has been Workforce Insights, excellence for every leader at every level. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.